They were created over a long period of time, massive sandbars that allowed people to use these sandbars to create cities.
Dr. Richard Freund believes that the famous rings of Atlantis may have existed in this bay thousands of years ago. Freund and a team of archaeologists, geologists, and anthropologists pore over satellite photos of the area.
We have put different depths.
They find what may be circular shadows of an ancient city.
Finally, we've narrowed it down to a very specific location around this mysterious circle in the midst of the swamp.
But in order to pick the best areas to investigate, the team needs better images. And a simple homemade contraption might just fit the bill. By attaching small cameras to a balloon and a kite, the team can get higher resolution images than the photographs taken from space.
Yeah, there we go, so that's working.
The aerial photographs we're doing today can give us the clearest images that they've ever had. Today we'll get the best photographs of this entire area with this balloon and see whether those rings really exist.
We're going to lift the balloon to at least 100 meters, and then we'll probably work at different increments of elevation, 100, 150, 200, and so forth.
Any patterns or anomalies in the soil that appear in these new photographs could indicate buried man-made structures. But if there was once a mighty city here, what happened to it? According to Plato's final chapter, the great city of Atlantis faced a cataclysmic disaster. Violent earthquakes are followed by great flooding, and after just one day and one night, the entire island of Atlantis sinks below the sea. In order to prove their theory, the Spanish team must find evidence of such a disaster. Dr. Juan Antonio Morales finds geological evidence of a long history of massive tsunamis hitting this coastline.
Puede observarse en esta zona como el desplazamiento de algunas de estas rocas a lo largo de esta plataforma tiene decenas, incluso centenas de metros. Por lo tanto, esto sugiere el desplazamiento no a causa de un solo tsunami, sino a causa de tsunamis sucesivos.
If the rings of Atlantis existed in this ancient bay and were ravaged by successive tsunamis, the city would have been torn apart or perhaps pulled into the sea. As a result, evidence of the lost civilization might not just be under the Doñana mudflats. It could be underwater, off the modern coast. So that's exactly where the team takes their search. Marine archaeologist Claudia Lofano and Morales are equipped with the latest in sonar technology. The torpedo-shaped towfish generates sound waves that bounce off the sea floor. When the signals return, they're received by a computer on deck that converts the sound waves into images. Any formation that appears in the sonar imaging system is mapped and its coordinates recorded.
We have seen an anomaly, which is a vertical wall. This is very different to a geological formation.
Magnifico.
It is a vertical structure.
Right now we found an anomaly that is not geological at all. It's very big, it's very high.
Two walls, one, two, completely vertical. It's very nice.
And the shape is not natural.
It's attractive.
Claudio and Juan Antonio locate what looks to be a large structure 39 feet below the surface. They'll have to return and dive the site. But some think the Spanish team is looking in the wrong waters entirely. The search for Atlantis has plagued many great minds over thousands of years. Scholars have scoured the globe searching for its ruins. For some of these explorers, Plato's description of the city's sophisticated architecture and society clearly points to just one location: the islands of Greece. And underneath the clay soil on this hilltop in Crete lies evidence of an ancient civilization way ahead of its time. Archaeologists call it Minoan.
Minoans were real master builders. I'm walking on a 4,000-year-old street, which was probably the main access to this Minoan settlement. Beautifully paved with very large slabs, specially cut for this building. All over the island you find elaborate architecture with major ceremonial halls, with frescoes, with shrines, and they really had a very sophisticated life.
Plato says Atlantis boasts gorgeous temples and shrines, with a highly ornamented palace situated on the central island. The Minoan architecture on Crete seems to reflect the same blueprint.
We're in the palace at Knossos, the major site of Minoan civilization, with this massive palatial structure at its core.
Could this be the great central palace that Plato describes?
This is a megastructure covering about 10,000 square meters. Now, this kind of architecture required incredible planning to get the stones from the quarry, to transport them here, to have the skilled masons work them. To create this kind of straight line and the different kinds of shapes would have been very, very difficult.
Walking amongst the breathtaking remnants of their ancient world, it's easy to imagine the Minoans calling their city by another name, Atlantis. To match the descriptions of Atlantis, the Minoan city also has to have an acropolis with dwellings and halls. And it's all here at Knossos. According to Plato, the bull is a central part of the Atlantean culture. In Atlantis, sacred bulls roam free around the temples. They're worshipped by priests and sacrificed in honor of Poseidon. Here in Knossos, it's obvious bulls were once a powerful symbol.
I'm above the northern entrance passage at Knossos, and behind me is this imposing bull fresco. Now, it really seems as if the bull was a very significant part of Knossian political propaganda. There's a bull leaping scene found in fresco fragments over in the east part of the palace as well.
The cultural importance of the bull, the stunning architecture, the depictions of a utopian lifestyle, together paint a familiar picture. It seems possible that the people we call Minoans are really the long-lost people of Atlantis. But Atlantis famously came to an end. Plato says the city was destroyed in a single day and night. Evidence suggests the Minoan people may have suffered a similar fate.
It's from this kind of archaeological evidence that we can deduce some kind of a crisis situation. A lot of things went bad.
On the southern coast of Spain, researchers have discovered buried structures they believe may be the lost city of Atlantis.
It's not geologic at all.
But there are those who think the Spanish team is way off course, that Atlantis was actually located in the Greek islands. The archaeology here is convincing. There is evidence that the Minoan people of Crete suffered a terrible disaster, an ancient cataclysm that may have wiped out this advanced civilization just as Plato describes. Clues to this catastrophe can be found 85 miles north of Crete on the Greek island of Santorini, also known as Thera. The disaster that occurred here nearly defies description.
It's a volcanic island, and the volcano exploded very, very spectacularly about 3,600 years ago. And we have here evidence with this very impressive architecture, not even excavated, it's just being exposed as it's eroded by the sea. And you can see here evidence of the Theran eruption with ash layers and pottery showing that this building was destroyed at exactly this time.
The ash cloud from Thera blocks out the sun for days. For the people of Crete, the effects are devastating.
We had these huge ash clouds arriving on the island of Crete, and they deposited sort of like thick packages of volcanic ash that must have caused tremendous problems in their agriculture, in their shipping, in their commerce. A lot of people probably lost their houses. You had volcanic winters. A lot of things went bad.
The earthquakes and massive volcanic activity on Santorini likely produced tsunamis, gigantic waves that crash onto the north coast of Crete. These waves would carry with them volcanic pumice, a very porous and solidified lava rock. Evidence of pumice on Crete could be proof that an ancient tsunami hit here.
There's some spots along the north coast of the island where you found like pumice deposition. That is probably related to the Santorini eruption.
And there's been recent activity from archaeologists suggesting that those deposits could really only have been caused by something like a tsunami.
Minoan architecture, temples, art, culture. It's all wiped out by one of the most powerful eruptions in human history. The case linking the Minoans to Atlantis is strong, but the legend of Atlantis hinges on its sinking and overnight disappearance. And for the Minoans, the eruption of Thera is not the end. Some managed to survive.
We have clear continuity in the Minoan civilization after the Theran eruption. We can see archaeological layers showing the occupation at the time of the eruption, and then rebuilding and reoccupation straight away afterwards.
It seems that despite compelling evidence, this is not the place that Plato describes. The Minoan civilization did not sink into the sea. It persevered. Ultimately, this triumphant story of survival is the greatest evidence against the theory.